Hi guys, so today's video is going to be a list of science fiction and fantasy books ranging from middle grade all the way up to adults that have school settings. Since pretty much everybody already knows that Harry Potter has a school setting, I'm not going to include Harry Potter, but I do have a list of 10 with an honorable mention of books, and 3 are middle grade, 3 are young adult, and then 5 are adults. And I'm going to start with the middle grade. I'll have timestamps for when I start each of the new age ranges, but starting with middle grade, the first one would be the Linus Rampant series by Tamora Pierce. Full transparency, I read these books when I was a kid and I really enjoyed them, but as a result, I don't remember them super vividly. I do remember really enjoying them, and the character kind of grows with the audience. So if you are somebody who likes to see the coming of age type of story, you're definitely going to find that with this main character. Or if you have a sibling who's younger, or maybe a niece or nephew or a child who's on the younger side, I definitely think this is a really good one. It follows a character who has a twin, and in their world, the boys go essentially to like a night school, and then the girls go to a different kind of school, and the siblings each want to do what the other gender is typically assigned, so they pull a parent trap, they switch places, and then our main character, Alana, goes to the school for nights. The next one with a school setting would be Rhythmatist by Brandon Sanderson. This one I have seen considered middle grade, and then other times I've seen it considered young adult. To me, it feels similar in tone to his young adult books. I'm not exactly sure why this one is considered middle grade at times, but there's nothing extremely violent or anything like that. If there is a younger person in your life and you want to be kind of cautious about that kind of content, I don't think this is going to push them over the edge. I love reading fantasy and science fiction for all ages, but I do find that sometimes middle grade can feel a little extra young for me, and sometimes it's not as appealing to my tastes. But this one, I think that this is so much fun, pretty much regardless of your age. I found the main character, Joel, to be somebody that I really wanted to root for. I find Brandon Sanderson's stories can sometimes take a while to get going, but I immediately cared for this character. I cared about his predicament and his motivations and his family. I just wanted the best for him, and in their world, he goes to a school, and a lot of the students at the school use magic. Joel cannot use magic, but he so wishes he could, and then you see him kind of become friends with this other person, this girl, this student at his school who can use magic, but she's kind of quirky and strange, and their friendship is precious, and I really enjoyed it. I loved the mentor figure in the story, and also there's kind of like a kidnapping slash murder mystery element that I found really interesting. The setup for the setting itself also is fascinating, and unlike most other fantasy books I've come across, it's kind of like an alternate history, and it's sort of our world, but not. The geography is different. The United States are a set of islands, and the magic is revolving around drawing with chalk and creating little chalk monsters, basically. It's very interesting and very unique. I adored it. The last of the middle grade books on this list would be School for Good and Evil, and I personally did not care for this book purely because I just felt like I couldn't really figure out what the main theme of the story was and what it was trying to say. I just feel like it kind of went back and forth, but that was just my experience. Most people really end up adoring the story, and it is part of a series where our characters are assigned whether they're going to become villains or whether they're going to become heroes of stories. And we find these two characters, they each look like they should belong in one of the schools. So our main character, she has the look of like a witch, and she gets sent to the school for villains, but really her heart might be more pure than her friend who gets sent to the school for good. Because middle grade covers a decent age range, and children do of course develop very quickly when they're younger, I think this one leans more toward the younger end of middle grade. That could be partially why I didn't necessarily connect with it a lot, but it does definitely pull from a lot of those familiar things that we encounter in fairy tales, but then it kind of flips them on their head. Jumping into the young adult books on this list, we have the Seven Realms series by Cinda Williams Chima. The entire series does not have a school setting, but the second book, the school setting is very much a part of the story. And if you like school settings, I feel like that second book is probably going to be totally up your alley. It was very much rooted in the story and the development of the characters. This is a quartet, so there's 4 books. That's what a quartet is. There's 4 books in this series, and I think that one of the things I love so much about it is that the arc overall is done really fantastically. This first book is not a one and done. It's not like you get to the end and you're like, oh, it could have been a standalone. Absolutely not. The characters are not particularly that mature yet, or I would even argue they're maybe not the most likable initially, and they have so much room to grow. But I loved that about them, and as the series progresses, you see that growth. One of the characters is a princess, and one of the characters is like a street urchin, kind of a criminal character, and they find themselves intertwined in each other's lives in really bizarre ways, and they have to tackle a lot of corruption. Next on this list would be the Grisha trilogy by Leigh Bardugo. This is a very popular series that follows kind of a chosen one character. This is a girl who doesn't think much of herself. She's an orphan. She doesn't have a lot of roots anywhere. She doesn't really have a lot of family. She only really has her best friend, Mal, and that's all she really wants in life is to be happy and enjoy life with her friend. But everything gets turned upside down when she discovers that she might have the power that's meant to kind of save the world. In order to learn how to use this power, though, she does have to go to this school that's dedicated to training individuals how to use their power. It's not necessarily the kind of school setting like Harry Potter where you follow her to all her classes and she's constantly working really hard to master all this stuff. It's not really that much, it's not shown that much, but it is part of the setting. It's kind of where she gets her start. On this list would be Skyward. So we have another Brandon Sanderson book here, and this one is science fiction. It follows a character named Spencer who is living on a planet that is constantly being attacked by aliens, and they are being attacked from the sky, and so their planet really values fighter pilots, and Spencer's dream is to become one. A great deal of the story then is Spencer trying to get into this school and having to work together with other students, things like that. And the stakes are incredibly high, and the camaraderie that's developed, the friendships that are developed, I think are fantastically done. It's so fast-paced, you don't want to put it down. And I do think it leans more toward the younger side of young adult. In fact, in some ways, it almost feels more like middle grade than The Arithmetist did, in my opinion. But I think if you're the kind of person that likes your stories to have high stakes, but also hope and characters that you can root for, characters that grow throughout the story, that's absolutely what this has. One other thing I want to mention about this one is the action. Action scenes for me are hit or miss. They gotta matter. They have to really make you feel edge of your seat type of thing. And this one delivers. I think that it has some of the best action scenes I've come across. You really feel like you're in that. You feel like you're in the ship with her. You feel like you're fighting these aliens with her. It's awesome, and I feel like all of those scenes, all the action scenes matter. Things happen. Things go down. It's great. Now switching into the adult science fiction and fantasy books with school settings. First one would be Nevernight, and this is not your traditional school setting. It's an assassin school, and they learn maybe some of the darker art forms. Obviously, they're assassins, or they're training to be, so they gotta learn how to kill. They also have to learn how to take pain. They have to learn how to master seduction and learn about poisons and all of these things. It's kind of angsty, and I think very eccentric. The writing style is very polarizing. You seem to either love it or hate it. I kind of just sat in the middle where I appreciated it for what it was, but I don't know if it really clicked with me. It definitely has this kind of edginess to it that I think is almost satirical in nature. Like it's being super edgy, but also I feel like it's kind of making fun of itself and the fantasy genre a little bit, and assassin tropes. It's like doing it so much that it's over the top on purpose, and I think it's kind of aware of it. But if you think that any of that sounds up your alley, you're probably gonna love it. The next 2 books have very similar setups, so I'm not lumping them together because they are the same, but as far as the synopsis goes, they're quite similar. And that would be Bloodsong by Anthony Ryan and Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. Both follow male characters, male protagonists, who are telling their life story, and a decent amount of their life story has to do with a school setting. I do feel like, strangely, Bloodsong, the school setting is more a part of the story than it was in Name of the Wind. I think Name of the Wind has a more self-discovery adventure feel to it, because the main character Kvothe kind of is exploring the world, and he has other motivations, and he kind of a little bit is more flippant, I think, whereas Valen is more honorable and more duty-bound, and his school setting is basically for, like, Navy SEALs, but for children. They go through the most intense things. Some of the kids die. It's really intense, but oh my gosh, so good. I loved this one. And I do think the writing styles are very different. I think that Name of the Wind is maybe perhaps more lyrical, where this one, it's very mature in tone. And there are moments that are hilarious, and because of the maturity of so much of the rest of the book, those funny moments stand out so much, and I think are even funnier as a result. I also just feel like the writing styles are reflections of the characters themselves. Valen is this very mature figure, and Kvothe in Name of the Wind, music is a big part of his life, and I think the way that Patrick Rothfuss writes is almost musical in a sense. I like Bloodsong a little bit more, but that's because I'm a character-driven reader. I love Valen, but both have school settings. Next up, we have The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. This one, the school setting element of it, is something that a lot of people end up really loving, so much so that when the school setting is no longer as prevalent to the story, sometimes people don't end up liking the rest of the book as much. But I still think it's a book that a lot of people really like, and it tackles some pretty serious stuff. The school setting, I think, is a great contrast to the later events in the book. So you follow our main character, Rin, who works really hard to get into this school, and then when she does, you find that she's working really hard to be the best of the best. She goes through the most extreme things in order to do this, but later in the book, you see all the preparation from this school setting played out in reality, and what she thought she knew kind of goes out the window when she's suddenly faced with the bleakness of war. So it does kind of have this shift midway through the book, but a lot of people really love that shift. I actually found that I liked a lot of different parts of the book. I just didn't always love Rin, but I loved that bleakness that just kind of slams Rin in the face and therefore slams you right in the face. I thought that element of the story was done really well, and I think that's in part because of how well the school setting, it makes you think like things really matter. It's like when you're in high school and you're like, I've got life all figured out, and then you get into the real world and you're like, never mind, no I don't. The honorable mention book on this list is here because I haven't finished reading it yet, but there is a little bit of a school setting, and that would be Queen of Blood. I'm reading it right now, so that's why I just have the dust jacket. But this story the setting is really cool. The stakes are really high and stuff goes down. So you are following characters that live in this world that is very, very much rooted, no pun intended, it's very much rooted in the forest. And there are these spirits that are so weird and creepy. Some of them look like people, but some of them look like owls, and some of them look like plants, and some of them look like a hybrid of a bunch of stuff, and they're weird. And in this story, sometimes these spirits just kill a bunch of people, and you don't really know why, and they do it really violently and viciously. They have this very bizarre instinct to create and protect, so they kind of want to protect the forest, and because humans sort of don't do a lot of good to the forest, they also like hate humans, but they're conflicted because they want to help create life, so it's like they want to kill humans, but then at the same time they can't all the time. It's very interesting. There's a queen who helps keep all of these spirits under control, and so there is a school that kind of looks at people who have the magical abilities to potentially become the next queen, because if they don't have a queen around, chaos will ensue. Like I said, it's only an honorable mention because I haven't finished it yet. So far, I'm really enjoying it, and I think it's very unique and scary, and the stakes are high, and I don't know what's gonna happen next, but I'm really liking it. That's it for some science fiction and fantasy stories with school settings. If you have any of your own recommendations, anything you'd like to add to this, definitely do so in the comments down below. But anyway, thanks so much for watching. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you guys later.